Is Man of Steel really as super as it tries to be? Hey guys, lukemick here. I am sorry I wasn't able to go see Man of Steel at midnight on Thursday night. It is now Monday. I got really busy. I was going to go to the premiere for Man of Steel on Thursday night, like I said in my fun time video, but what ended up happening was my movie pass would not let me go to it at midnight, because I went to a movie before that day, so yeah, it was kind of a mix-up with that, so I couldn't get into the movie, which is unfortunate. So it took me a while because I was already had plans for the whole weekend, but saw it today, and I'm gonna give you guys a review. So if you watched my fun time video, I kind of talked about my history with Superman, and I don't really know a lot, and that's all I'm gonna really say in this video. So the story, everyone knows what Man of Steel is. It is the new sort of Superman reboot that is happening from the producers of The Dark Knight, as it says in the trailers, who's obviously Christopher Nolan, and Zack Snyder is directing, and he directed Watchmen and 300 and Sucker Punch and some other not as great movies, but you know, what are you gonna do? So, this movie, I was not necessarily excited. I'm not a huge Superman guy. I could kind of care less for the guy, but obviously coming from the whole Dark Knight era, we need a new DC superhero to sort of take his place for the next, you know, three quarters of a decade, maybe 7 years, 7.5 years. So that was Man of Steel. So this movie was really anticipated by a lot of people, and it really needed it needed to be good. It had a lot of, what's the term I'm looking for? It had a lot of weight on its shoulders. I can't even think, whenever I'm doing my reviews, I can't think of terms. But the thing is, this movie really needed to be big and good, to really be comparable to, is that a word, comparable? To be comparable to the Dark Knight trilogy. So, that's what this movie had to be. It had to be as good as The Dark Knight, because it's the follow-up of all that stuff. So, we'll get into the story. It's, like I said, it's pretty much the origin of Superman. It shows little snippets of his childhood with the Kents, the Kent residents in Kansas, and at the beginning, the first about 20 minutes of the movie, I really like. It is basically on his home planet of Krypton. Is that what it's called? I'm almost positive it's Krypton. It's on the home planet, and when he's a baby, he's not really doing anything. It's more his dad, Russel Crowe, and they're sort of setting everything up for the whole movie, and they send him down to Earth, as most people know the main story of that. So the movie, no one knows who Superman is, and he's kind of been hiding his whole life, and in this movie he really needs to come out, and when the country and the whole world really is in a very difficult situation, he needs to step up and show them that he lives among them, and that he's a super mutant human alien. Alien's the right word, the right race. That he can stop the evil and save everybody and kind of be a new war weapon. So that's sort of the story. I don't know. That's pretty much the story. Where am I trying to go with this? Let's talk about the performances here. Most of the performances are really good. I was really worried about Henry Cavill as Superman, because he was in Immortals, and I didn't see that, but it didn't get great ratings and looked kind of dumb. And he was in something last year that was just garbage too, I hear. So I was really kind of worried about him playing Superman, but good news, he was a really good Superman. I've only seen Christopher Reeve, I think, play Superman back in Superman 2, and I mean, I don't remember much, but I thought he was did really good in this role, and he looked the part. He was a pretty good actor. He wasn't really that bad, and I'm excited to see him in future Man of Steel or Superman movies. He was good. Kevin Costner as his dad from Earth, he does really good as well. When he's in the movie, he's not in it a ton, but when he's there, he does a really good job, and he's really likable from what you kind of pick up through the sort of fragmented experiences of his childhood. And like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this, but Russel Crowe was phenomenal. I really liked Russel Crowe in the movie playing his dad from kryptonite or whatever. He was really good, and the guy from Law and Order was in it. He played an army sergeant. I like that guy. I like Law and Order. And Michael Shannon was in it playing the villain. He was also pretty damn good. He was a good villain who really had a reason for wanting to kind of conquer Earth, and he really sort of had this grudge with Superman or Clark Kent or whatever you want to call him. I thought he was a pretty good villain, and he played the part pretty well, and it was all dandy. And then there's Amy Adams. Amy Adams does good here, but I think there is a major flaw with her character of Lois Lane, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So let us talk about the direction. The direction, I like Zack Snyder. He has some good movies. I really like Watchmen and Dawn of the Dead. Haven't seen 300, but I generally like his style. But in this movie, I can't remember if he uses this technique a lot in his old other films, but it sort of has a long, like, landscape shot almost, and you can kind of see, let's just say, Superman flying over the hills, and you just barely see it, and then the camera super quickly zooms in and just kind of catches them, almost like it's maybe just, this is kind of going in depth, but maybe just imagine like a satellite picking up on an image of Superman flying through the hills. He used that abundantly. It was really getting annoying. He kept using that. He kept zooming in that way and zooming out that way and zooming and zooming, and I was getting really sick of it. It was really annoying, and I wish he would have changed it up a bit and used something else, but there was a lot of that, especially towards the beginning. But the cinematography, I thought, was really good. All the colors and everything looked really nice. It looked really just realistic, but then again, obviously, it's not. It's Superman, but I really liked the cinematography and the color tones. I thought that was all good. So, let's talk about Lois Lane. I don't think there's going to be any spoilers in here, but first of all, I'm not really familiar with the source material. I don't know what she's supposed to be like, but I feel like her character had almost no connection with Superman or Clark Kent. They just sort of met, and from there they sort of, I guess, fell in love, kind of. I mean, there just wasn't that click, I didn't feel. I didn't feel like they had really any time to build a relationship. The movie just kept going, and she was there helping out during the movie and doing a bunch of things that are useful, but I was just thinking, like, why is she even with the army guys right now doing all this? All they needed to get, all the information they needed from her was where to find Superman, and they just, her character, she just didn't seem to really be able to connect with Superman. I mean, they met, like I said, and after that, they were, like, in love, and it wasn't developed very well at all, I don't think. And another flaw I have with it is the story. The story's good, and the villain's reasoning for everything is pretty good. I like that, but I feel like there's just parts where things are happening, and they're sort of unexplained, or they're kind of coincidental. Like, it's not really... they just sort of happen, and you're there just thinking, wait, okay, so was that just a coincidence that happened? It doesn't really do a good job explaining exactly what's happening in the story, and it's not like a movie where you have to really analyze it and figure out and piece it all together. It shouldn't have to be that way. It's a summer blockbuster. I feel like they just didn't explain it well enough, and it got really confusing and kind of jumbled up at certain parts. But I also think that the special effects in the movie were really good. With the fight sequences, the first half of the movie is much slower. I didn't have a problem with it. And it was more just developing Superman. I thought he was developed pretty well, but like I said, his relationship with Amy Adams, or Lois Lane, was developed so poorly. I don't even know. I mean, hopefully they can work on that in the sequel that they'll do for sure. But that really bugged me. But anyways, the special effects and all the fight sequences and the action scenes, the last half is all that stuff. That was all really good. It was filmed well. You could always see what was happening. There was a lot of explosions and buildings being torn apart, and it was really detailed with the CGI effects. And I really liked it. I liked that aspect of it. And Superman, just throwing people through walls. It all looks perfect. It doesn't use a bunch of slow-mo crap to just show it off. It was just gritty fighting between Superman and other super beings, and I really liked that part. But another thing that I think kind of drags the movie down is towards the end, it starts to get really, really long. Like, you get the whole developing thing the first half of the movie, and there's a big fight scene, and you think it's going to be pretty close to over, but it just keeps going and going and going, and I feel like it really drags along by a thread. I feel like it takes a really long time for the movie to finally wind down and finish, and it was getting really kind of cumbersome, but in the end it was all good. I guess the fight scenes were worth it because I thought they were really cool, and yeah, and I really do like the movie I really like the way they wrapped the movie up to set it up for the sequel. It was pretty sweet and short, and it really got to the point, and it really showed you what they're going to be doing in the next one, and I liked that. And I don't know if I mentioned this, I might have, but some parts do get really kind of just cheesy, and there's just other kind of side characters that you don't really care about, and they try to make it super dramatic, and it's just, I didn't like that aspect of it either. So, overall, I think the movie is filled with good performances, but definitely has some major issues between the development of the story and relationships, and just a bunch of other stuff, just some cheesiness. And another thing is Amy Adams, at the beginning of the movie, really bugged me, her character. And she kind of did the whole time. But right at the beginning, she was making, like, dick jokes and stuff, and the dialogue was really out of place, and I was just like, is that what the Lois Lane is supposed to be like? I mean, I'm not familiar with the source material, but that seems really out of place, if you ask me. So, the movie definitely flawed, some entertaining action scenes, a really great lead for Superman, surprisingly, and Russel Crowe was really good, but I just couldn't get into it the whole time, and it did feel really long. So I'm going to give the movie 3 out of 5 stars. Hopefully the sequel, now that things are all kind of set up, even though it's kind of choppy in my opinion with the setup, hopefully it can all be fully developed and ready to go for a sequel that we all sort of know. Yeah, we all know what's going to happen. Now, we're not going to know what's going to happen, but we don't have to, like, sit there and take in all this development. We can kind of get into it a little more, develop maybe the bad guy. Now I'm talking into the future. So this is lukemick signing off. Please subscribe. I'm going to be seeing, hopefully, I might be going to my cabin, so I might not be able to make it to one of them, Monsters University and World War Z, and if Maniac comes to my town or my city, I would love to go see Elijah Wood play Maniac. So, lukemick signing off. Please subscribe and goodbye.